Hello Millwall fans, Paul Eiffel here. It's time for Chat with Chaps.
Hello, Millwall fans, and welcome back to another episode of Chat with Chaps. This is a Chaps Reacts video where we're actually going to do a double header today. We are first going to react to the permanent signing. Can't believe I'm actually saying this, to be honest. What a coup for us, of Alfie Douty on a long-term deal from Luton Town. And I've got a special guest to come and talk to us all about that, someone who certainly knows more about Alfie than I do. And in the second half, I was at the fans forum last night, so I'm just going to give my take on some of the major talking points. So stick with us. As always, if you've not already, please like, share, subscribe, all of that jazz. If you're a Luton Town fan, please give us a like. Please give us a subscribe. Everything we do, all profits go to Cancer Research UK, as you can see there in the left-hand side of your screen. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to bring on a Luton Town fan who yesterday put up a video. I'll link it to it in the description, talking about his perspective from a Luton perspective on Alfie Douty moving on. I'm going to welcome to the show Mr. Lewis Williams. Lewis, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, all good. Personally, all good. Football-wise, not so good.
It's been a bit of a rocky sort of week for Luton fans, hasn't it? And obviously, this news was probably, I'd say, you probably expected him to move on, but in the manner in it happened, probably not so much, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like, for me, it was 50-50 because from our perspective, we thought a fee of around £5 million at the very least we were going to get for him. And I just didn't know if there was going to be any championship clubs out there that would pay the £5 million. And also, from what happened last time he moved up north, he went to Stoke from Charlton. It didn't really work out for him. He didn't like being away from down south. So I was trying to look at the southern clubs and I was like, I don't see any southern championship team coming in for him. But then the rumours came about on the weekend. Millwall were the club he supports. And I was like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, yeah, he's going to go. But hopefully we get the fee which we expect. But unfortunately, that hasn't, well, from the sounds of things, that hasn't happened. And you look like you've got him on a really, really good deal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's undisclosed, which I think I've seen some of your reaction to this from a Luton perspective. It's a frustrating thing. I understand why people do it, but it's frustrating. But the fee that I am led to believe is between £2 and £3 million, which, from a Millwall standpoint, given 25 years old, the amount of games he's played at championship level, the quality he brings, the Premier League experience, and the fact, if I'm not mistaken, Lewis, he signed a 4-year deal last summer. So this is not someone that's contract is running out. To me, that represents really good value from a Millwall perspective. Would you, obviously, frustratingly, but would you agree with that?
I'm just praying that there's clauses in his contract that means he could go for that price, or there's like some other weird deal they want to put in that deal, because it's a new contract and it was last year. A relegation clause might have been in it, which would make sense for the fee to be that low. But I'm just praying, because I feel like we've been mugged off here in terms of the price. And I know there's football fans out there. What do you expect? He's a League One player, but he isn't a League One player. He is a Championship player. And as you said, like 4-year contract, he's done it in the Premier League as well. There were rumours about him potentially getting an England call up. Manchester United were apparently linked to him at one point. So when you've got that player of that calibre at your team preparing for a League One campaign, you're going to request a high fee. It's just natural. I think anyone would do the exact same. So yeah, just to hear the amount that's been suggested, £2 to £3 million, it's quite upsetting, to be honest.
I mean, I think in a Millwall fan's life, it's very rare that you see a player from an opposition and you're like, oh, he could be available. We'd have no chance of getting him. We'll have no chance. And then out of the blue, obviously this all came about very, very quickly. And the verbatim from our side was something on the lines of, and don't quote me, but when he became available. So that to me suggests that there was something that's changed in the last week or two in terms of his availability. I don't know what would have driven that from your side. Maybe you can shed some light, but it didn't feel as though that was something that was always there. Because I think the other thing as well, don't get me wrong, he is going to add some serious quality to our left-hand side. And we'll talk a bit about his best position in a minute. But I wouldn't say it's the most obvious area that we need strengthening. But I guess from our perspective, you've got a player of that quality that becomes available, that is at the fee that's been rumoured. He's a Millwall fan. It's like, why wouldn't you sign him? So, but yeah, I'm just keen to get your perspective on, one, what could it have been that all of a sudden changed his availability? And then two, maybe we can start to lean into where you think he's best, where he has the most influence on the pitch.
I think the message from Matt Bloomfield to all the players basically has been, if you don't want to play here, the door's open. We want players that are going to be committed. So I'm not too fussed that he's left because he wants to progress his career and play at a higher level. That's fine. I want committed players. I think every football fan of their football club, they want committed players. They want players that are going to, drive through a brick wall for the team, and especially when there's high expectations for Luton this year, where we want to go for a promotion. We want to be challenging for that title. You can't have players that are looking elsewhere. They've not got their eye on the actual task that's on the pitch, trying to win football matches. So I think basically, he would have known that from minute one, basically. But I just don't know, maybe Millwall decided, right, we're going to just ask the question. And then they got the answer they actually wanted. I just find it mad because for £2 to £3 million, I think so many more championship teams would have just grabbed that chance of £2 to £3 million. That's what makes it even more surprising that actually it's taken this long. So I don't know if there's any tapping up that's happened. If people have phoned his agent and gone, is there a release clause in the contract? Just stuff like that, really. But yeah, in terms of his actual best position. So for us, he pretty much was a left wing back. We didn't play with wingers. We haven't done at Luton for a very long time. There were a brief moment when Matt Bloomfield first came to the football club. We played the 4-2-3-1 formation for a period of games, and Alfie did play as the left winger. He didn't look quite all right, but then he did just come back from injury, didn't look fully fit. And also the way Luton played, and as everyone knows who's been watching Luton for the last couple of years, we're not exactly a ball playing side. We were a physical side that used to go long all the time. So I think the actual playing style didn't really suit the formation at the time when we were testing this new one out. Whereas in the past, it's been him at left wing back. We get the ball out wide, put the crosses into the box to our two target men strikers in Colton Morris and Elijah Adebayo. So I think for me, he's a left wing back, but I understand why Millwall want to play him left wing, because his best, traits, his qualities are further forward.
And I think this is where it's interesting you said around your two target men. And I know it didn't work out for you last season, but I've long been a admirer of Colton Morris and Elijah Adebayo. And we've got two centre forwards that are built similarly. We're probably going to play a 4-4-2 next season with Mihailo Ivanovic and Josh Coburn. There are two units up front. And I think having someone that can deliver the quality that he can, but also set pieces. He's a dead ball specialist, is what I understand. And we've not had that for some time. George Saville often took a lot of that. We'll talk about him in a minute. He's certainly not his strengths. But so I think from us, it makes sense. I think that very rarely will we play a 5-3-2. But what Alex Neil does like to do is to really overload one side and maybe have one other side that kind of narrows a little bit. So I think having a lot of width in that left will give Alex Neil plenty of options. I think another thing as well that could have played a part in him coming, obviously, other than the fact that he's a Millwall fan, is his agent, Scott Barron, who used to play for Millwall, and I believe has ties still with the club. I think he's also Matt Bloomfield's agent as well, to be fair. And I believe our director of football may know him from his time at Charlton. So I don't know if there's any links there, but maybe that's something else that could have played a part. I want to talk to you now about last season's performance, because I've read mixed reviews. I've got some Luton fans were saying, on one hand, you've got everyone dropped off on their performance levels, and he was probably still at the top end of that group. And then other fans are kind of like, he was crap last year. He clearly didn't want to be here. He was overweight. He was injured and all this kind of thing. Where are you on that scale? Because I also looked up, and he created the 13th most amount of chances last season. He created 62 chances last year. There's only 12 players that created more in the Championship. So, yeah, would love to get your thoughts on that, Lewis.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It depends what type of glasses you're wearing. If you're going to have tinted glasses on, then you might have a certain viewpoint. I think the best thing to describe Alfie is, yes, his performance has dipped, like every other Luton player. But if you look at the good stuff, he was in that good stuff. As you mentioned, the amount of chances he did create. The issue was, I think, last year was he did get injured, which I think impacted. As a team, we weren't fit. That was a massive Rob Edwards issue. So I could go all day about why the players weren't fit, but Matt Bloomfield improved the fitness when he eventually arrived in January. But yeah, there was
I'd love to get your point on Rob Edwards, but yeah, carry on.
So yeah, there was a fitness issue. He obviously had an interrupted season, but a lot of the chances which we created last year were just through set pieces rather than through open play. So I think a lot of fans had high expectations on Alfie because of the Premier League season and because of the season before in the promotion winning year. He was so good. He was so important in the way we like to play our football. His performances dipped. And I think, fans you're going to be critical of that, why your performances dipped. You should be setting the standard so everyone else can look at you and think, well, if Alfie's performing, then we should also perform. So, yeah, his performances did dip. A lot of his chances only really came through set pieces, which was frustrating. But, yeah, I think overall, yeah, again, he was okay. He wasn't terrible. He wasn't the worst player on the pitch, but at the same time, he could have done massively better.
Yeah, I think it's probably a balanced view there, isn't it? I think he's, when you think about, and I'd love to get your perspective on kind of what his best qualities are, but from an outsider looking in, he's someone that can take a set piece, as you alluded to, good at 1v1. He's got that pace and the trickery, decent delivery into the box. And for every time I've seen him play, he's one of those players that sort of wears their heart on the sleeve. I think we like that in Millwall. I think just like you do, and we've lost some of that in Sav. So actually, we'll talk about Saville in a minute. But would that be a fair assessment on Alfie's qualities?
Definitely, but I think what also goes very unnoticed is, although he's got all these great attacking qualities, is the defensive aspect. He actually is a really good defender as well. The amount of times he's had to dig deep and get stuck in challenges and do a lot of recovery runs. I was quite impressed, and I got a little bit more impressed just seeing him more and more frequently in a Luton shirt. At first, I didn't really see it, but then in the Premier League season, I was like, wow, he actually does get stuck in. He does work really hard for the team. So he definitely has that and everything you've already mentioned.
Yeah, he's in the Premier League season, he was absolutely phenomenal. He really, really was. And obviously, he sparked rumours a few years ago, didn't he? Because he put something on his Instagram of him in a Millwall shirt. So it's been long documented that he's a Millwall fan. And obviously for us, it's amazing now that hopefully it gives him a second gear to try and give everything to the club that he supports. I know that we both would if we were ever given that opportunity. I guess just closing out then on Alfie Douty, what would kind of be like your final message to Millwall fans in terms of the player, the character that we're getting, and yeah, just any sort of final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think for me, you're getting one of the best players in his position in the Championship. I think many teams he would easily walk into their starting 11. He has that final third quality. He just needs to produce it on a consistent basis, but I'm sure he'll work that extra 10% harder. Now he's playing for a club he supports. So you've definitely got the player, his CV matches the ability. I don't think it's going to be an unsuccessful transfer. I think regardless, he's going to be really good. And hopefully he has an amazing season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons. So you guys sell him on and we hopefully get even more money due to the sell-on clause. So yeah, I hope he does well.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if there's a sell-on clause, particularly given his age of 25, right? He's still got such a ceiling, right? So, no, thanks, mate. And I think I've looked at a number of videos. Obviously, that's how I found you. But I watched the Luton Town originals for any Millwall fan that wants to know more about Alfie the person and his family. I think it's a really good. It's like 50-minute video that's on your YouTube page, and it comes across like quite a nice lad. He doesn't lack confidence, let's say, but he comes across as still quite a humble, nice lad. And I'm assuming that any interaction you've had with him would align with that.
Yeah, well, Nathan Jones was the man who signed him at Luton, and I think Nathan Jones actually signed him twice. I think Nathan was the manager at Stoke originally when he brought Alfie to the club. So Nathan Jones, he doesn't sign average players or players that have poor attitudes. He signs the right characters, and that's why Luton had such a good time under Nathan Jones. His recruitment was pretty much bang on. So if Nathan Jones rates him that highly, then you've got someone good there.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he gets on at our dear friends Charlton this season. I'm glad a few Charlton fans thought that Alfie Douty was on his way back to them, so I'm kind of glad we certainly managed to pip them to that one. Lewis, just moving on then quickly. I think we should talk about George Saville. So I think George Saville, first, I said to you off air, first and foremost, a top bloke. And on the pitch, I think he's a bit of a dying art. There's not many players nowadays that, with the way that the game's progressed, that offers what he does. And, I think that from what I've heard and read, Luton fans are already seeing what he's bringing to you. So what are your first impressions of our dear old Sav?
So I'm going to put it this way. If we had him last season, Luton don't get relegated. He's exactly what we needed last year. I know they say it's a young man's game nowadays when playing football, but you do need an experienced head within the dressing room, just on the pitch, I think, at times. And just seeing him, so I watched him in the first pre-season game against Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth, National League side, I'm not expecting too much. It is a pre-season friendly. But he just did the simple stuff right, recovered the ball back so well, so often, and he was guiding the young players. He was literally telling the young players where to run so he could feed them the ball. And if we just had that last year, I just can't imagine a world where we would have got relegated. He's the right type of leader which we needed in the dressing room, and we now have like leaders all over the pitch. But having him, I think personally, is the most important transfer we've made so far in this window.
I would agree with that. I think everything you said resonates. He is, to be honest, that's the one thing that I'm now worried we don't have. Right, we've signed Massimo Luongo from Ipswich to kind of replace Sav, and I think it was one of those things that, look, I would have kept him. I'd love to have kept him. I understand that there's probably commercial elements as to why not. I know you were prepared to offer him a multi-year deal. I don't think we were, so he's got to look after himself. It's only up the road, but it would not surprise me if he is fundamental to you getting back in the Championship, and we're not playing against him again next season.
Yeah, I think with Luton, we've had, I think, over the past years, in our successful years, we've always had someone experienced, at least in the middle of the park. So during our promotion from League Two to the Championship, we had Alan McCormack, who was this experienced Championship midfielder at the time, dropping down to that level. He was so important in the way he guided and showed his leadership on the pitch. And then in the Championship promotion winning season, we had Henry Lansbury, who again offered exactly that same experience and leadership in the middle. And now we've got Saville, and it's just like you think that's like the final piece of the jigsaw, and you're just hoping that it can all just come together and you win that promotion. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more of him this year. He looks fit. He looks ready to go. He had offers from Championship clubs, so he could have stayed in the league above, which for me excites me. I think sometimes fans, you just look at his age and go, "Oh, why are we signing someone, second half of their careers? They're going to retire soon." But no, there is a role for them. You just got to see it, and hopefully, lots of fans change their mind.
I'm sure they will once they see him play. He offers so much both on and off the pitch. So stand up, guys. I wish him all the best. In terms of what I think, when I look again outside of looking in, I think one of the things that you probably need, particularly with Adebayo, I think he's still injured with an ACL, right? Someone that if he was fit, I would love to come knocking and take him off you, by the way. But obviously you've got Moeen Ali, who's have I got his name right? Is that?
Oh, is it Milik? Oh, it's Irish.
He's a cricketer.
Yeah.
His name's Ali. His name's Ali.
Yeah.
But you probably need another centre forward, and I've heard
Yes.
little whispers that you could be interested in Mr. Langstaff. Have you heard those rumours? Is that someone that you think could be a useful addition to you?
Yeah, there's been talk online. If I'm being honest with you, if you look at his goal record through like Gateshead and Notts County, he could definitely do it in League Two. And for me, the quality between League One and League Two, I don't think is that different. I think the gap between League One and Championship is far greater. So maybe he struggled with the step up from League Two to the Championship. He's not the first player to ever struggle with, that step up. Sometimes it takes more than a year to get to grips with everything. And then looking at the amount of games he played last year, I don't know how often he had a run into the team. I know I think he made more sub appearances than he did start. So maybe he needed more of a run. Obviously, you'd be able to tell me more if he actually did have a run in the team. But I think he knows where, I think if he gets given enough chances, his finishing's there. You've seen his goal record at County. So there is something there. You just got to try and figure it out. But maybe dealing with better quality defenders, he just struggled to adapt and compete against.
Yeah, I mean, I can't work out, and I think a lot of Millwall fans have made their mind up. He's not ready for the Championship, and he may never will be. A lot of Millwall fans have made that assessment. I'm not sure. I just think he's one goal away from being, ready for it. I don't know. I wouldn't want to rule him out just yet, quite frankly. I want to give him a little bit more of a chance, but then at the same time, I think he's like 27. He needs to be playing football, and he's not going to get in ahead of Coburn and Ivanovic. So we seem to be building a bit of a relationship with you. I'm sure Sav was in Alfie's ear in terms of what you can expect. So who knows? Maybe that's one for both of us to watch.
You're talking about how you like Elijah Adebayo. Well, let me put it this way. He's definitely one striker that he's the biggest confidence player I've ever known. And if he doesn't get that goal, he can be an absolute nightmare. Could he misses sitter after sitter after sitter?
Last season he missed. I was like, how can this be the same guy that did so well in the Premier League?
And sometimes for strikers as well, it does take that goal and then you don't stop scoring. So yeah, I think maybe that is with Langstaff. Maybe we need to just figure it out. I think Matt Bloomfield, he's got this really good relationship with managing players and getting belief back into their system. So maybe that could be a really good partnership in the future. Who knows? But yeah, we definitely need a striker. I think if we get that striker in who can score roughly 15 goals in a season for us, I think that's more than enough to help us win promotion.
Yeah, and I genuinely wish you all the best in that. I just want to go back to one of the points you made earlier about lack of fitness. And I guess I was just going to ask you, what went wrong? Like from you did so well to get into the Premier League, and I thought out of every team that went up, you gave it a good crack. And obviously you come down, lost some players, kept some players, and then obviously the back-to-back relegation was just, what didn't quite work?
Yeah, how long have you got? So
all day, mate.
So the Premier League season, when we got to the January window, we were above those relegation places, which is exactly what you want to do in your first season in the Premier League. If you can be just above those relegation places, come the January window, what do? You strengthen, get players through the door, and then go again for that second half in the strongest position possible. But what did Luton do? We didn't recruit in January. And it was really baffling at the time because no one really understood it. Like, why not take full advantage of this situation we're in? Just invest, get some good quality players to help with the squad depth, because that's what we lacked. We lacked a lot of quality in squad depth, but we didn't do that. But then, like a week after or 2 weeks after the January window, we had an injury crisis, and that's what kind of killed us. There was no recovering from that. We had I think over 10 players injured at one point, and having an injury crisis at Luton is totally different to having an injury crisis at a Manchester United or a Tottenham, because our academy players, they're more non-league, League Two level, whereas, you know, Tottenham, Manchester United, their academy players are Championship, League One. It's just a massive difference in quality, and it's just that easy, really, especially in the Premier League. But then you thought, right, okay, we got relegated. A lot of people expected it, but we did give it a good crack. But we needed to make some changes. And I think when you do get relegated, you've got to make changes. You can't just keep the same group and expect they're going to perform exactly like how they did a couple of seasons ago. That's not how it works. And our recruitment was really strange. We didn't bring in players through the door. We signed McGuinness quite late on into August. So he didn't really get a pre-season. I know the high fee for him, but to be honest with you, I can understand the fee because he is a really good centre half. He just needed a pre-season with us to kind of settle in and show us what he can do from minute one. But he got better as the season went on. We signed an injury-prone player in Baptiste who just constantly kept getting injured, and that was it. But we needed to sign more players. We needed to bring a bit more quality through the door. The injury crisis from the Premier League season carried on into the new year. The pre-season campaign under Rob Edwards, the performances were really, really poor. I know it's pre-season, but you want to see something from the players. And we were kind of like relying on individual brilliance to get us through games. You can't rely on that. You need your team. You need to perform. And the players just weren't fit. We went into the opening game against Burnley, lost 4-1, and the players just weren't fit. And Matt Bloomfield, when he came in in January, he came out and said the players are not fit. Midway through a season, how are the players not fit?
So is obviously Rob Edwards has gone on to Middlesbrough, right? Arguably, with the greatest respect, a bigger club than both of ours, right? Did that surprise you? Are you not the biggest Rob Edwards fan?
Well, I found out that he's mates with actually the chairman, so that's how he's got the job eventually. But I think what Rob Edwards did, he took his eye off the pitch. He took his eye off the ball a bit, and what I found out was he was trying to be everyone's best mate at the football club. Like, he was such a lovable guy. Everyone at the football club loved him.
Yeah.
But I don't think he forgot about the task which was on the pitch, and the Luton identity that helped us progress up the leagues, that helped us progress in the Championship, that actually won us promotion, that kind of disappeared quite quickly. And we needed to make a decision. We got beat 5-1 away against Middlesbrough. And he did an interview after the game and he looked defeated. He was like, you need to sack me because I cannot continue. But we decided, because we were so loyal to him, actually, we believe in you. We believe you can turn this around. But 2 months later, it kept getting worse. It was horrific to watch at times. The fact we managed to beat you guys was, I don't know how we managed to do that under him. But yeah, a change was needed. And unfortunately for Matt Bloomfield, not winning in his first 8 games cost us the relegation that wasn't the reason why we got relegated, but it had an impact. If he got something more in those first 8 games, then we would have definitely have stayed up, because the last 12 games of the season under Matt Bloomfield, only 2 teams got more points than us, and that was Leeds and Burnley, who ended up winning promotion. So hopefully Matt Bloomfield can take that form from the back end of the season into this new one, and we start the season off strong.
He does seem very highly rated, Matt Bloomfield, and I believe he interviewed for the Millwall job when Alex Neil obviously was confirmed. So no, look, and Lewis, I wish you all the best. Genuinely, I really do enjoy the away trips down to Kenilworth Road. I think it's always a unique place, and we've had many a good battle over the years, and probably certain battles that were before our time that are historic. So, Lewis, all I can say is thank you so much for coming on, mate. I really do appreciate it. You spoke so well, and I'm sure the Millwall fans will really be interested to hear your point of view on all things Mr. Alfie Doughty. Any closing thoughts? And if you could just let the viewers and listeners know how they can find you.
Yeah, enjoy Alfie. Hope he does really well. I think you guys are gonna, do something special this year. It certainly looks like it from an outside perspective. I think you're definitely going to challenge for those playoff positions. I think with Leicester and who's the other club I'm thinking of? Who else got red? Southampton, yeah, I think Southampton and Leicester. They're the two. I've got a few unknowns, and I don't know what to expect. We'll still be in like this new young manager coming in back to English football, and then Leicester not really signing many players. I feel like potentially I don't think promotion is as settled as it was last year, if that makes sense. So I think there's a lot more teams that could compete, and I think under Alex Neil, who I know done a fantastic job with Norwich and Preston at this level, I think he can really get you guys challenging at the top end. So I wish you all the best. And yeah, in terms of where you can find me, just type in Lewis Williams LTFC on Twitter or YouTube. I'm sure I'd be the first to pop up. And yeah, I make Luton and EFL content, whatever league Luton are in, I make content about it. So yeah, that's what I do.
Well, I'm sure Millwall fans, give Lewis a follow. He makes some absolutely cracking content. And yeah, just once again, Lewis, thank you all very much for coming on.
Thank you very much. I wish you all the best for the season.
Likewise. Take care, buddy.
Cheers.
All right. Okay, ladies and gents. Thank you for that. A really good interview there with Lewis Williams of Luton Town. We're now going to switch gears and I'm just going to talk to you basically about the fans forum. So I've got some notes here from last night. And I think I want to start off by saying, please don't quote me on anything. I took some notes. I didn't record it. I don't remember exactly how things went down. So please don't, if I say anything, please don't read into it too much. But what I would say, it was really good. It was very well attended. I thought all of the speakers spoke very, very well. And I'm going to be honest, I just find Alex Neil so impressive. I really, really do. If you've been listening to me for a little while now, you'll know that I've wanted him to be Millwall manager for some time. And he comes across so impressive, the way he articulates himself. And, you know, one of the things that stands out to me was someone asked him about his, you know, is he committed? Is he here long term, etc., especially with the new deal and his family being up north? And he said, obviously, absolutely. I mean, he's not going to say anything else, is he? But, you know, he sort of concluded that statement with, I'm here to get Mill in the Premier League. And I just love that. And I genuinely, anyone that knows me really closely will know I'm a massive pessimist, but I can't remember the last time I've gone into a season so optimistic. I really can't. Signings like Alfie Doughty, like we've just spoken about, I want to thank the club, obviously mainly Jimmy, for investing like you are. It's such an exciting time to be a Millwall fan. And based on what we spoke about yesterday, I think there's still going to be one or two more through the door. So let's talk about that then. So I think the question was asked about the priority, if you like, one position that we would want to fill. And the priority is quite clearly a central midfielder. So that was something that Alex Neil spoke about. You know, I think they want someone that can carry the ball. I can't remember the exact word, but I guess more of a box-to-box midfielder. I think with both George Saville going out and George Honeyman also going out, we'll touch on those two in a minute. I think there probably is a space there. I would imagine Luongo will be a bit part player, a bit like Sav was. And when we were talking about Sav, Alex Neil did say quite clearly that his preference last season, when available, were Denor and Billy Mitchell. And obviously, Denor was ever present last season. I find he is crucial. Denor. I personally asked about his contract, and they said they have an option. So good news that we can exercise that. So this isn't his last season in terms of contract. And Cooper, however, we don't have an option on. So Cooper's contract runs out. I think it was yesterday that it was 8 years to the day that he signed. I believe he's 7th in the all-time performances. And I think if he plays 30-odd games this season, he'll enter the top 5. So for me, they need to sort his contract out. And that was kind of the point I personally made, was I understand business reasons and even potentially on the field reasons as to why Honeyman and Sav weren't kept on. But I think you'd struggle to find a Millwall fan that doesn't see, you know, benefit in keeping Cooper beyond this season. So that was something that I asked, and they kind of skirted around it, but they just said something along the lines, we want to keep our best players at the club. That then takes me to Mr. Tanganga. So a lot of questions around Tanganga. And my take on Tanganga was, first and foremost, no one wants him to leave. And he does appear to be very happy and settled here. However, he does have a desire to play in the Premier League. And I think the way that what I concluded from this was the club are trying to prepare for him being here and also prepare for him potentially not being here. And I think that will dictate a lot of where Tristan Crammer plays next season. I think if Jaff's here, Crammer's our right back. I think if Jaff's not here, he goes into the centre, and potentially Gallen talked about having some centre backs already waiting and in the wings should we need to pull that trigger. So Mr. Gallen also referenced that we have offered Jaff a new contract. Now, one can only assume that is, an attempt to buy out the clause that's in the contract. Steve Gallen also mentioned the fact that, probably an obvious statement, but one that was made, was that the 1.2 million release fee, which the club didn't skirt around, and I commend that. They could have claimed it weren't there or whatever. They didn't. That obviously was a driver from Jaffet's side. Now, of course, that's obvious. Why would we want to put a 1.2 million clause in? But I also got the sense that we will continue to rebuff offers from abroad where the clause isn't relevant. But yeah, I honestly can't call whether I think he'll be here or not. I think he is a very, very good player. But the fact that he's not moved on yet potentially suggests that other clubs don't believe his value as much as we do. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But I think the club were very clear they want to keep their best players. And that includes Mihailo. So Mihailo, they basically said, they said what a few of us have been saying, which is even in pre-season, it's like he stepped up again. And they want to keep him. He's very happy and settled, and they paid testimony to his dedication. They also said when he first came, he was homesick, and that makes sense, right? He wasn't in the starting lineup for quite a few months under Neil Harris. But obviously, Alexis Neil has brought him into the fold, and we're seeing what we're seeing. But they did say everyone has their price, right? And I mentioned this last week. What is his price? I don't know. I actually now, not that it's going to be my decision, but I actually now don't think I'd accept 15 million for him, which is crazy when you think about he was a £3 million investment. So that I think we should hold out for more. But of course, it's not our money, and it'd be interesting to see. If I was a betting man, I would say that Jaffet will move on and Mihailo will keep. But none of that. That's my perspective. None of that came from yesterday. It was very clear we want to keep both of those. One of my biggest surprises was the lack of, I think it was both from Alex and Steve, the lack of belief that we need a right back. I disagree, respectfully. I think we do need a right back. Now, I understand it from a business perspective. You've only got a finite budget. You need to prioritise somewhere. You've got 4 right backs on your book. You've got Tristan, who did very well last season. You've got Ryan Leonard. You've got Wes Harding, and you've got Danny McNamara. So you've got 4 right backs. So I understand why you wouldn't want one. But I genuinely believe the system that Alex Neil plays, where you have the right winger tuck in, creates so much space. And if you could get like this pacey, athletic, marauding right back, a bit like a Doughty or a Sturge on the other side, I think there's a huge opportunity there. But maybe that was a statement to protect the fact we've got 4. I don't know, but I found that quite interesting. Alex Neil also talked about the fact that the formation next season, he wants to get his best players in the team. At the moment, he thinks that's with a 2 up top. So I do very much expect us to play a 4-4-2, which I think I agree with. And I think that the fault of Mihailo and Josh being fed by the likes of, Doughty, Negley, Aziz, Bangura, Willie. I mean, it's really quite interesting. Kevin Nisbet was brought up. Alex said that he's got a clean slate under him. And someone in the audience said, we understand he was, didn't turn up to training and wasn't dedicated and all this sort of thing. And Alex just said, look, if anything like that happens under me, it'll be quickly remedied. So I do believe there's a genuine injury there, because I think there was, is he injured? Is he not? So that's one that I think we'll have to see how it plays out. Langstaff wasn't brought up. Obviously, we just talked about him, but I would expect one of those two to move on. But then I think we need another centre forward, which, of course, wasn't brought up because the talk was more around the central midfielder. Honeyman and Sav. So the kind of stance, which I kind of knew this, was that the club did make them both a contract offer that they felt was reflective of where they would be in terms of contribution on the pitch this season, which I understand. And I think if we look at the business we've done, could you say Sav Luongo? I would probably put them on a par, because although Luongo's maybe played at in the Premier League and whatever, I think that Sav knows Millwall, and I just, as you've heard, I love Mr. Saville, so I'm never gonna. I would struggle to say anyone's better than him. But you could maybe argue they're on a par. Honeyman and Doughty, they're not the same player. But if you was to say, which one would you prefer, I think it's a no-brainer. So I get it. Obviously, the drive to bring the value of the squad down. But yeah, I think that was one point that was made. Looking down my list, they talked about the dressing room and how that's our biggest strength. And then they talked about the fact that Josh Coburn, he wasn't keen initially on a permanent deal, but after a year here, he did. Hence why we've ended up signing him, which, by the way, 5 million sounds a lot. But when you see Charlton pay up to 5 million for, someone that's unproven at this level, I think it maybe it does represent good value. Obviously, there were sort of laughs and jokes around Alfie Doughty, obviously building up to that, and they were talking about him but not talking about him. Someone asked about Alfie Devine. My take from what was said is that that's not something that's going to happen. I also don't really see where he fits in, to be totally honest, if we're going to play a 4-4-2. Liam Roberts was offered a 2-year deal, wanted to move back home and wanted assurances he's going to be number one, which we wouldn't give him. Alex Neil said he knows who's going to start number one. He's got a good idea, but he wouldn't reveal whether that's Max Crocombe or Stephen Bender. I personally think it's going to be Stephen Bender, because you don't bring him in, really, I don't think, without assurances that he's going to start. Imaku, someone talked about how he's such a confidence player and there's so much raw potential, and what's the story of Imaku? I think Alex Neil, the way he spoke would lead me to believe that he does have a future here, because obviously with Doughty coming in, you think he pushes down the list even a little bit further. But he talked about needing to bring all of his game together. But it wasn't, I don't know. I mean, what else is he going to say? He's not going to say, yeah, he's got no future. But I don't know. I felt that the club do believe that Idemo can get there. And that was certainly representative, I think, of the way that came across. Youngsters. So there was some talk around Baker, Lovelace, Matthews. There were some questions around the fact that obviously when these players are brought in, they're signing 7, 8, 9. Everyone gets excited and then we never see them. So there were some conversations around what's the right level of treatment to give these signings. But Gallen spoke about how, look, they were low-level investment. So if one of them makes it to the first team, it would have been a job well done. I found it interesting that, that these guys aren't being touted as first-team players, particularly Lovelace, because I think, he's had such exposure. Dan Kelly wasn't spoken about too much, I don't recall, but I believe he's injured, and I think he just needs a little bit of a break, lucky break in terms of injuries. What else? I feel like I'm missing something obvious. Looking at my notes here, Roberts, youngsters. I feel like someone's screaming at me saying you haven't mentioned this, but I think they're all my notes, to be honest. I've obviously stuck to on the field. I haven't spoken about, there was a whole other section around off the field. I'm not going to go into that. I just thought I'd give you my take on what I heard in terms of on the field. So, look, I want to say credit to the club. Other than the fact you only have one bar staff, guys, come on, we all need our beer. I thought it was a very well-run event. Everyone spoke really well. Just gives you so much confidence in the direction in which we're heading. Continue to be impressed by Alex Neil, and I'm just so excited for the season to start. Obviously, by the time this goes out, we're away at Sutton imminently, because this should go out just prior to the Sutton game. Well, look, I've spoken now for 45 minutes, and I need a break. So I'm going to leave it there. As always, thank you for listening. It was obviously nice to speak to a few people yesterday. Tony Adams, I think John, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So really nice to talk to some of you yesterday. Really looking forward to getting into the new season, and just always, as always, really appreciate all of the support. So give us a like, give us a comment, give us a share, and we will be back soon on the next one. Hopefully there'll be a midweek live. We'll confirm that as soon as we can. Thanks for listening, and of course, as always, bye for now.
Hi, it's Steve Morrison here, and you're listening to Chat with Chaps, chatting Millwall, come rain or shine.